We're going to be discussing Fantastic Beasts and the Secrets of Dumbledore. Like I said, this is the third in the Fantastic Beasts franchise, where they are Newt Scamander, Dumbledore, and Jacob Kowalski, with some kind of other little bit of added additions of the gang, are coming together to stop Grindelwald. Grindelwald, who is the evil wizard who is trying to destroy all of the Muggle world. In this movie, you see Grindelwald trying to gain power. By the way, this Grindelwald, who's now the third actor to play the character, is being played by Mads Mikkelsen, who is replacing Johnny Depp, who played him in the second and first movie.
Johnny Depp, who replaced Colin Farrell, who played it for most of the first movie.
Yeah, so this is the third actor to play this character now. So you see Grindelwald in this movie trying to gain power in the wizarding world through an election, through kind of nefarious means, and it's up to kind of Dumbledore and Newt Scamander and their team to kind of stop it, because it would be disastrous for both the wizarding world and the Muggle world as we know it. With this movie here, the Fantastic Beasts as a franchise, I kind of look at like with the Hobbit movies with Lord of the Rings. I think the Hobbit movies I'm not a big fan of. I think they try too hard to be epic like what the Lord of the Rings movies were, and they end up kind of falling on their face and kind of losing track of what
very much so.
Was.
Yeah, very much so. And much like with that franchise, I actually really liked the first movie in that trilogy. I really liked both the first Fantastic Beasts and the first Hobbit. I thought the first one was kind of this, you know what, let's explore another aspect of this wizarding world. Let's see what it looks like in America. Let's explore, let's do this story that, you know, by any means shouldn't exist, doesn't really have any connection to Harry Potter and his story. And let's explore more of the world, do some more world building. And then the second movie happened.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the same way with you. I mean, the Hobbit movie, I was the same thing. I was like, this is okay. And then I heard they were going to do 2 more movies, and then it just kind of lost track. And then same thing with Fantastic Beasts. It's like, okay, I think this is okay, the first movie. Then I was like, okay, then I heard they're going to do 4 more movies of this. I was like, I don't see this cast. I don't see these cast of characters really being that interesting for 4 more movies, but okay. And I did like the whole thing with Newt Scamander, like this person who's clearly on the spectrum, who's got some form of maybe autism or Asperger's, or something like that.
Yeah, I think at the time it was a very different protagonist from what we usually see in blockbuster films. It was like we see characters that are much more self-assured, much more outgoing, and here it was interesting to see a character that was very, very introverted, possibly on the spectrum, and he's still doing all these amazing things in this movie.
Yeah, so I like that. I did enjoy that. I thought that was, like I said, very much different than what we see of the typical strapping protagonist that we see. So that was kind of very interesting.
And I also think that was Eddie Redmayne hot off the Oscar win for The Danish Girl.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Didn't he also won for? He stole Birdman from
he stole Birdman from Keaton.
Yeah, for the Stephen Hawking movie, which it wasn't.
Theory of Everything.
The Theory of Everything, which was just okay. Birdman's way better in my opinion. But that's just me.
Yeah, I did like Birdman. Yeah, better myself. Yeah. So you had Eddie Redmayne, who's here as Newt Scamander. You got, like I said, Jude Law's Professor Albus Dumbledore, who I think does a good job as a young Dumbledore. I think he's kind of one of the best things in this series, along with Dan Fogler, who's Jacob Kowalski, who I think, that's the kind of thing with this franchise. They keep kind of going back, and they introduce a story beat, then they kind of get rid of it and kind of retcon it when it's necessary. And then same thing with Dan Fogler. Like in the first movie, he had his memory erased, but it's like, wait, he's the fan favorite character. That's the best. He's the comedic relief of this movie. So we got to bring him back again.
He was the one thing that was universally praised about this movie. So we got to bring him back, even when it makes no sense.
Yeah. We got to try to figure out a workaround to do that. And then they kind of do the same thing a little bit here in this movie, which it's like I don't really see a major reason to really bring him back. I mean, you can say his relationship with Queenie, who that's the big kind of relationship in this series.
But that doesn't really matter in the third movie.
Yeah, exactly.
It's barely it feels like an afterthought in this movie.
Yeah, and also Queenie's decision, they retconned hard from the decision Queenie made in the second movie.
Yeah,
with this
because
so
in
the second one it came out of nowhere.
Spoilers for Crimes of Grindelwald, but Queenie at the very end, she decides to join Grindelwald because I think at the time in the wizarding world it wasn't hey, no dating muggles. It was like, no, that's a big no, and he sells her on, hey, you have the freedom to choose if you join me and I take over. And that's why she ends up joining up with Grindelwald. And then that's completely retconned in this movie.
Yeah. So this, like I said, decisions like that is just kind of sloppy throughout this series, like retcons
which is probably the biggest thing you can say about this entire franchise. It's sloppy.
Yeah.
It's clearly there's clearly a difference between something like this, where it's very much just smashed together different ideas from a writer that has clearly passed her prime with J.K. Rowling. And I think the one major reason that this works more than the second movie is because she is the least involved in the script. And it's just a hodgepodge of different ideas that don't really mesh well, don't really make any sense, and that is just clearly Rowling shitting out material so these fucking Potter nerds will keep giving her money, even after they should not, because she is an awful person.
How do you know that she had a less involvement in the script? Where is it, like, did you read that?
Because Rowling is the sole credited screenwriter in both the first Fantastic Beasts and Crimes of Grindelwald, the second one. And here they brought somebody else who I believe was the screenwriter for all 8 Harry Potters.
Okay. While you look that up real quick.
It's like a screenplay by Steve Kloves and J.K. Rowling. And Kloves was the screenwriter for at least for all 8 Harry Potter movies.
Okay. Okay. So I'll say that I do like this movie because I've been hearing from some other people that this movie is the best of the 3 that we have so far. This one is the best one. I still think I like the first one better. I think it's better than the second one, but the second one was just such a mess in terms of, I think, like I said, a lot of errors, and then all this story beats that didn't go anywhere, like with Ezra Miller's character, Credence, that went nowhere. It's like, but let me tell my backstory with this that led to kind of nowhere. And then
and it also goes nowhere here.
Yeah. And then they introduced like wizard rape in the second one. It was like, okay, that's there. Because you know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You mean the part where Queenie brainwashes Dan Vogler to keep dating her?
Well, that, and then in the second one, they also do the backstory of the Lestrange, and they tell like the reason why
the backstory. Oh my god, the backstory of Lestrange is one of the weirdest moments in any movie I've ever seen, where a scene of exposition is 4 different twists in a single scene of who's this baby, who's this child, who's the real Lestrange, and who's this, and it's like none of this mattered, none of it at all mattered.
Yeah.
And I just feel bad that movie is on Zoe's resume.
Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of weird things there. So I will say that this third one is better than the second one. I don't think it's better than the first one. And like the kind of other one, there's some good pockets of good things, like I said, with some of the characters, like with Jude Law, like with Dan Fogler. Also, like a big person who's not really here that was a big person in the other two movies is Catherine Waterstone. Because I was watching the trailers for this movie, I was going, "Where's Catherine Waterstone?"
Yeah, she's not in any of the trailers, and the reason for that is because she was trying to like speak out against what a fucking bigot J.K. Rowling is, and I guess as punishment they wrote her out for most of the movie.
Yeah, because when they do explain why she's not there, and they might as well just say like,
Mhm.
well, she pissed off the creator. She made J.K. Rowling kind of mad, so that's why we didn't bring her ass back. I mean, they might as well just kind of say that. I mean, because they say like, oh,
Yeah,
she's
she called out J.K. Yeah, she called out J. Karen Rowling.
yeah. So I guess I mean I don't know if that's really the reason, but I don't know. I mean, I was just kind of
It
like,
is.
yeah, because they like, well, she's busy with her new job as
It
the
is, and it is the 100% the reason. And honestly, bullet dodged.
yeah,
Mm.
because they say like, well, the reason she's not here is because she's busy with her job as being the new head of the Aurora office in America, which Newt's brother is in this, and he's the head of the
Yeah,
Aurora
he's
office.
head of the
Yeah,
Magus.
he's also the head of the fucking Ministry or office. So why is he there?
By
Yeah,
the way, there's some stuff that happens in this movie where they're like, "Oh, what do you mean you lost him?" There's
yeah,
like a whole scene. There's a whole scene where like, oh, they gotta at one point they gotta rescue a character, and you're
Hmm.
like, this what it. Yeah, I'm gonna let you guys continue, but I have a lot to say about this, and just as a Fantastic Beasts as a collection.
yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, this yeah. We'll get in. I know what you're talking about. We'll get into that. Yeah, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I know.
So this is supposed to be like an all hands on deck type of situation because they're supposed to be stopping Grindelwald. I mean, and
Hmm.
everything. But they're like, yeah, she's busy. She's got a new job. She got a promotion, so
Yeah,
she can't
yeah,
come. Yeah,
they're trying to sell this as like the Avengers Endgame of these Fantastic Beast movies, except you barely know any of these characters. Most of the people that are on this mission are introduced in this movie,
yeah.
besides Newt Scamander and Jake Kowalski, who is wonderfully played by Dan Vogler.
Yeah, I was looking at it because you do have Jessica Williams who's in this, who's
Mhm.
Professor Hicks. It did say she was in the other two movies, which I don't remember her.
Where?
I don't remember. I was trying to say, I was like, I don't remember her being. I haven't seen those movies since they came out, so maybe I'm mistaken. But I was like, I really don't remember her character. I remember his brother being in the second movie. I do remember his brother being because it was the whole love triangle with
Mhm.
his brother and Zoe Kravitz and
Mhm.
him. So
Yeah,
I do
love.
remember.
Yeah, whole ass love triangle that goes nowhere.
Yeah, that also kind of went nowhere there as well. So it says Jessica Williams, who's in this. It says that she was in the second one, Crimes of Grindelwald. That's what it says here.
Well,
And
you put a gun to my head, I couldn't tell you where.
yeah, and I like Jessica Williams. I really liked her in Booksmart, where she was a teacher in that. I thought she
Mhm.
was really good. She was also on the Daily Show. People might know her from that. She was the correspondent on that. Here, she does like a very kind of transatlantic accent that doesn't really work for me. That sounds
She,
kind of way too
she's
cartoonish.
doing a very old timey 1920s radio.
Yeah, it's like you do know I'm a witch, right? I'm here to save
You
you,
know I'm a
Jacob.
witch.
Yeah, I'm
You
here
know
to
I'm a
say.
witch.
Yeah, it's just like, you're a stranger, but you helped a completely, known stranger. Why did you do that? Who was in danger. Yeah, it's like, okay. It's just like an accent that just, I don't think works for me. I just like,
Mhm.
yeah, I like her, but I think she could have been a nice character, but I was like, yeah, I'm not too sure about that accent. That's what were kind of your feelings on the characters in this here.
So the characters in is this is one of those stranger movies I've watched, especially for an encompassing series. There's no chemistry between a lot of them.
Mhm.
For a lot of the characters, you can't believe why they're there. What what little characterization we are given for certain characters that doesn't necessarily translate
Mhm.
well. Like for Thaddeus, Newt Salamander's brother. I had got no feeling they were brothers at all.
Mhm.
Like very little. And he's kind of this upper crust kind of British guy, very opposite to Newt. doesn't necessarily take his skill super seriously, but he's like, okay, man, if that's what we got to do, whatever. Um, the defense character that you're talking about with the accent, she feels very jolly gee kind of a character. Like, oh, and we'll just go here, and I'm an excellent interpreter. You're doing very well, and you're just like, okay. Well, and then we got Jake, we got the Muggle guy, and he's being the comedy relief in this movie that has necromancy in it at one point. That's a whole kettle of fish.
They have necromancy in here, even though they absolutely said in the original like Harry Potter that the one thing that they cannot undo is death.
Yeah.
Which I guess they just kind of forgot about.
Yeah.
Well, also it seems to be temporary. According to the movie, like, oh, we can do it, but what are the effects on it? What are the noticeable cons? This whole the biggest problem with this movie, unfortunately, is that the characters don't have the charm that the originals did. They don't have the charm of the environment too. A lot of times I was seeing like the certain magic being utilized in the original series. You got the sense that this world was stuck. The magical world was stuck in time at a certain period at a certain moment, and it did that because they didn't need to move forward with technology. That was where the dissonance was. The Muggle world kept moving forward because they didn't have magic, so they had to have technology to catch up with it. But Muggles, like, there's really no reason for us to have like any of those other things because we can just kind of do all these other things. There's really no reason, and that was kind of the charm of it. It was like almost like a semi-Victorian age or Elizabethan era, and they're just kind of chilling in that time period. They didn't really need to go further, and making in America, in the 1920s, and the Muggles had to deal with it. It should have almost kind of been the same. Instead of it being the 1920s, like the environment could have been 1920s in America at the time, but a lot of the Auror's office should have almost been like 1776-esque, or the 1886s, where it's we've come to a certain point, but there's really no reason for us to go far. Like, oh, automobiles, looking outside. That's no big deal.
Like, Mitch, we can teleport. We don't need that shit.
We've got whatever. Using all these different things was a way to utilize the environment and to show the distance between the two. Trains were like at most. Trains were the biggest technology mages utilize just because of their convenience, and that was the charm. And with this, it's I can shoot here. A lot of the action scenes in this, unfortunately, aren't that interesting because they're just throwing stuff.
They're confusing because the two biggest set pieces, they're played in like this like other dimension.
Yeah.
That I don't know if it affects the real world at all, because they're clearly, when it starts, they're in the middle of crowds, in the middle of public. And by the time these action scenes end, if you can call them that, it's like nothing around them has changed.
Yeah.
He pulled a mirror.
It's pretty much saying that none of the action matters because it doesn't really take place in the real world. None of the character, you don't feel any danger for the characters because, spoiler alert, there's no stakes in this movie because we know, at least for like half the people involved, we know where their story ends up.
The problem with these movies are that Fantastic Beasts are the most interesting part of it. Newt Scamander and him dealing with these different creatures and just kind of relating to them and finding them interesting. That could have been a whole series of just side stories dealing with interesting specific mages. There's a whole character, George, one of the brothers from Ron's family. One of them's a dragon tamer. He literally just races dragons.
Charlie Weasley is a dragon trainer. And every time he comes on, I don't think he was in any of the movies.
No, he does not, even though he gets a really cool appearance in the book. In the books, he shows up and takes the dragon from Hagrid as he's given to him. He's like, oh, don't worry. And there's actually a comment that at one point he's wearing like dragon-scaled shoes. He's wearing like, all these stuff. And Hagrid, I think, thinks, oh, he's going to poach her. He's like, and he just kind of taps it and he goes, "It's not real." And he's just kind of like, as like a joke, no. It makes me look like them so that they respect me. It's like dragons, like if they see me kind of dressed kind of like a dragon, they respect it. They respect the scales. It's just like a way that felt fairly natural. And this, every single spell goes off. You're like, okay, who's sending what? Who's doing Expelliarmus? Who's doing this? The whole combat was much slower. It felt much more like a proper duel. And this is just like, let's just fire our lasers and just something will happen.
Yeah.
Magic lasers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like I said, that's what it kind of feels like. With kind of a lot of these action scenes, because you're like, that was kind of also the fun of watching the Harry Potter movies, is they would say the spells and they would execute the spells that way. Here they just kind of point the wands and stuff kind of happens. And when they do have these action sequences, they go in, like I said, which I don't know if they explain that in the other movies or
they
not.
Don't.
Okay, because I was like, I was kind of like, what is this supposed to be? Like you said, like Dust was talking about the mirror universe, like, hey, like Doctor Strange, like he can go into a whole other universe where it's like this doesn't affect this other dimension, it doesn't affect the real world. I was like, I didn't know what was kind of happening in those sequences there. And then in this one, where you see like a little bit, you see in the trailer where Grindelwald and Dumbledore are kind of facing off. I was kind of expecting a moment like in Harry Potter. I mean, the series as a whole never really had that big of action set pieces, really, when you look at all the 8 movies. But when it was kind of that one sequence between Dumbledore and Voldemort, it was like, oh, this is badass. Like when they're going back and forth.
Yeah, that duel at the end of Order of the Phoenix is epic. It feels like two of the most powerful wizards that have ever been in one of these films facing off against each other, and the ingenuity that you get when you get to that age and that skill with magic.
Yeah. That scene was that was badass. Like that felt incredible. Like them going off and him doing it, I was like, wow, this is awesome. And this is like when Dumbledore faces off against Grindelwald, it's kind of like, oh, that's it. This is, you know what I mean? Like this is kind of like, it just doesn't have that sense of epicness.
It's like a 3-minute set piece that doesn't really matter, which I think is the biggest problem with this film and with this franchise as a whole, is that I barely know any of these characters. So even when you put them in danger, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Which is something that Harry Potter nailed, because you spent so much time with this cast and with these characters just through all of these movies, that when the stakes finally get raised in Prisoner of Azkaban, everything on, you feel a legitimate sense of dread and danger whenever they're facing their challenge.
Yeah.
Remember when the biggest threat in the first movie was, he killed a unicorn and drank its blood? That was like a big deal, because unicorns are beautiful, pure creatures, and you'll survive off of their blood, but you've also comes with a terrible price, because it's going to get less and less good over time, and you're kind of afflicting a curse upon yourself as you're doing it, because to kill such a creature is such a terrible thing. What does that do for, like, at one point a creature gets horribly killed early on? How does that affect him and the person who does it? And how did you even know you could do the magic of even necromancy, even though you could? How is that discernible? How could nobody not see its discoloration? Everyone can see it. That should be like a very known thing. There's so many like plot holes in this movie that was driving me nuts. There's also locations. Like at one point, a character gets kidnapped. They get taken to this weird prison, and it's violent and horrible. And they're just getting eaten off. And like Dumbledore just gives it's one of their pet projects. I'm like, in the old Wizarding world, that wouldn't have been allowed. That would have been like, whoever was in charge of this needs to go to Azkaban. Whoever is in charge of this needs to be put away, because that's not how we treat our people. Like the Azkaban was the worst of the worst.
Dude, they throw motherfuckers in with demons that like feed on your happiness.
True, but that's like the worst of the worst.
Honestly, this prison, at least you have a set date for when it's all gonna end.
Yeah. It just, to me, there's just a point of, all right, there's no, and at the end of it, you're kind of like, it's resolved, but it's not, because Grindelwald's still there, and I was just, by the third movie, I'm like, just end this. Just let it be done. I don't care. Nobody cares about the Grindelwald and Dumbledore thing. It was in the original series. It was a offhanded mention by his brother and his sister. It was because Dumbledore should have never been explored as a character. He was fine at his point because he didn't need a backstory. He could just be left to have that tragic moment, and that informs more of a mystery and his motives. There's a lot more to his character.
Yeah, and it's what makes but that backstory, I'd argue that you do kind of need one, but not exploring it, it's what makes the last two movies and the last book, it's what makes them so interesting, because you're kind of taking the rose-colored glasses off of this supposedly, all-seeing, all-knowing mentor figure that these characters have known for the past 8 years of their lives, and just pulling him down to our level and realizing that he's human too. He's made mistakes.
Yeah, when you speak about Grindelwald and Dumbledore, I mean the kind of what this kind of is. I mean, I've never been interested in Grindelwald as a character. I just think he's kind of just lame Voldemort. I mean, it's kind of like the same thing. It's like, okay, he just wants to take over the Muggle world, and he hates humans and everything like that. It's like, okay, I mean, that's the same thing Voldemort want to do, and he's got his whole set of Gestapo Nazi wizards that want to come and help him out, and it's like, okay, it's again, we've seen that in the Harry Potter movies, and the only thing that kind of made it a little bit interesting was the relationship between what he had with Dumbledore, that they were in love, that they were lovers at one point. But you don't ever see their relationship, only little glimpses and flashes of it, because they're too scared to go that full in depth with it. So when the moment in this movie, when Dumbledore says well, hey, I loved you. Actually, somebody in my theater, they did go, what the fuck? So when that line happened, somebody did go there. They're like, I guess they ain't been keeping up. I guess, but which that
was also cut out in China.
Yeah, which if you can cut out 6 seconds of a movie and get rid of all the kind of context of any gay relationship, then it really wasn't a relationship to begin with.
Nope.
If you
no,
just cut it was
there. No, it was purely. It was the fucking. It was the fucking LGBTQ equivalent of saying, "I'm not racist. I have a black friend."
Yeah, I mean, it just was. It was. I mean, this relationship is kind of pointless, and this is supposed to be kind of the core of, of the whole feud. And again, like you said,
spent no time with young. If they're gonna do this, she should have just not even made it about Newt. It should have just been about young Dumbledore making friends with Grindelwald, and then that becoming and his sister and his family, and then just seeing how that all it's like a tragedy and kind of unfolds. But he still sticks to his principles, and he becomes that person that he does.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because they should have did the one little Fantastic Beasts movie with Newt and the animals. That was cute, and then shifted away from that and focused on Dumbledore and did a whole other kind of separate kind of franchise with that.
It honestly should have been like an anthology series. Each one is a wizarding character. Each one you get to see a different specialty in the wizarding world. Some characters can cameo in other movies because it's a big world and someone need help. And then the third movie, it's a completely different character. Oh, there's an animal. Oh, Newt shows up. Hey, he's going to help out this character. But he doesn't take away because this isn't their movie.
Yeah, that's actually Newt. Good idea.
Newt being there, he's the best part of the movie. Anytime there's a Fantastic Beast, that's when this movie kind of works. His performance and his work with his creatures are the best part. The best parts of any of these movies. But they've crammed so much other crap in there that doesn't need to be there. His friendship, the reason why the first one kind of worked, even with the extra crap in it, was it doesn't matter, was the genuine friendship he makes with a Muggle that he didn't expect. That was in the Auror office and having to deal with the Aurors not killing these beasts. That's all it has to be. He has to deal with the bureaucracy that they just don't understand, that he's the hope to save these rare creatures, and how much he cares about them, and he gets to show this to a Muggle, and this tragic moment is I didn't expect to kind of be friends.
Yeah, it's this heartbreaking scene in the context of the first movie, because this is one of the first people that I've made a genuine friendship with, and now I have to say goodbye. for his own sake.
And then exactly. And Dan Foley actually makes the greatest sound ever of heartbreaking. He's like, oh, the first one, it works, and everything else that should have been the end of it. And at the very end, like maybe he begins that relationship with the Aura woman because he's moving on, and you just have like that quiet. It ended on that quiet little moment of okay, like they were initial they were kind of rivals, and then they kind of formed. She started to understand why he cares so much about these things, and it kind of sort of turned into a semi-romance. And then he has the courage to ask would you be interested in stuff? And it just ends on that quiet note, and it just pulls back, and you see his friend, and he's been making some stuff, and Queenie shows up, and you're like, oh, and that wraps that tiny bow. We move on, and now we're going to move to a different character now. That was Fantastic Beasts.
All right.
That should have been what it was. It's like a one and done.
But
yeah,
I don't know. J.K. Rowling realized that, hey, nobody gives a shit about my books, and I read some of her other work outside of Harry Potter, and it sucks. She's not a great writer. So she's just doing pandering and just going to nerds and say, give me money.
I guess we'll wrap up. I'll give my final thoughts here. Yeah, I think it's slightly better than the second one, but that's not saying much. I didn't really like the second one at all that much. And I think that, like you said, there's just not really much of a connection to me with any of these characters. I think a lot of story beats fall flat. A lot of you just don't feel it that much because you just don't feel like you've been on a journey with these characters. Even like the one character, like the other Lestrange relative, he barely even has anything in the movie.
Disappears.
Something happens.
Disappears for like a solid 2/3 of the movie.
Yeah, it's like, okay, there's really even no purpose for him to be here. He doesn't really even do all that much. So it's just like, that's just how I feel about a lot of these characters. Like I just don't really care about them, or care about their journey. And a lot of the action I just felt was, I mean, it's trying to be epic, trying to be big, but kind of failing a lot of that points. Mads Mikkelsen, I mean, I don't think he's vastly superior or better than Johnny Depp. I like Mads Mikkelsen. I think he's a good actor, but he's just okay here. I think Grindelwald, like I said, as a character, I've never really cared about. I don't think they've given me a reason to care about.
Grindelwald Grindelwald in all three of these movies is kind of this poorly written archetype. However, I do think however, I do think Mads Mikkelsen, I believe more of the romance between him and Dumbledore when it's played by Mikkelsen, because I think he's an actor that works much more with subtlety and can give off a lot of emotion with just a look. Something that I don't think Johnny Depp could pull off convincingly, because Depp is very loud, rambunctious, and explosive.
Yeah.
I think you haven't seen a lot of his smaller movies, but Depp can be, but it's also
Depp now. I think Depp now is like that.
Yeah, I suppose.
I think he just does kind of an okay job for me. I would say, I mean, I don't think this really necessarily need to go to the theater to go see this. I don't think this series as a whole is that interesting. I know somebody asked in the chat, they said, is it worth to watch any of these movies? I could care less about this franchise.
If you have no love for Harry Potter, because I still do. I remember going to every single one of those movies opening. I remember camping outside the theater to get my ticket to Half-Blood Prince and to Deathly Hallows 1 and 2. I have a lot of love and nostalgia for Harry Potter as a franchise. But these movies, they're just there. The first one is okay. It is a very solid, functional blockbuster, but part 2 is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. It's this poorly cobbled together mess. And this third one, it's better, but not by much.
Yeah. That's kind of how I feel about that. And so for me, I just think it's a streaming for me. And I'm not, I'm not coming into this with, J.K. Rowling or anything like that, personal agenda, take her down or anything like that.
I'm I'm purely talking about this as a film. I think J.K. Rowling is a fucking awful, awful human being and deserves all of the shit and all of the canceling that she did to Catherine Watterson in this movie. But judging it purely as a film, as separating art from artist,
Yeah, yeah. For me, so I would just give it a stream it kind of for me. Kind of middle of the road stream.
Yeah, I'm at a skip it. I think there are parts of this third movie that really work. I really like I like whenever Jude Law is on screen as Albus Dumbledore. I like his scenes with Mads Mikkelsen. I think they work really well together. I really like Dan Fogler in this. He's consistently one of the best things about this franchise, even when it makes no sense for that character to be there. However, I think story-wise, it's completely hollow. It's this kind of soulless cash grab filmmaking that we just got with Morbius. However, the only thing that's keeping me from giving this movie a go fuck yourself is that those elements of it that actually work. And so I'm going to skip it with this.
Mm-hmm. Dusk?
I'm kind of caught between the two of you, where on the one hand, I'm looking at it, I'm looking at it from not really a J.K. Rowling thing. I'm just looking at it as a pure movie. And there are some moments, but so much of it is just not put well together. The characters are fairly flat, and the characters that do somewhat work only work because they previously were done better, and they kind of carry a relationship beforehand. Whatever relationship they had, Newt and Dan Fogler's character, they hardly say anything to each other in this movie. They have like one brief hug in the very beginning, and it's good to see each other. But there's no integral. I thought of it, and the entire time I watched this movie. Whenever you have a heist movie, or whenever you have a movie, why is this character here? What can this character do that no other character here can't do in their stead? And if they are there for just purely numbers, that's a horribly big misuse of an ensemble cast. Each character should be very specific on what they can and do, what they specialize.
It's why the MCU and the Avengers work so well, because every single character in one of those big ensemble movies, they serve a purpose. There's a very specific reason for them being there, whether it be servicing the plot, whether it be an emotional arc, whether it be a thematic thing. Everybody serves a purpose in those movies. Here, I couldn't tell you why half of these people are here or who any of them are. I barely remember. I just saw the movie like 2 days ago, and I'm struggling to remember anything from it. I'm very much struggling in using my notes for this review.
Yeah, it's such a strange thing because even from the basic premise, Newt Salamander is a character that you can have him be on a team to do this kind of a thing, but his expertise should have only solely been like, what kind of a creature is this? How is this doing? What kind of behaviors does it have? And he's like, oh, well, I think we should do with this. And you're like, okay, cool. Why is he leading the team? He doesn't have any specific strategy. Well, Dumbledore's doing all the work for everybody.
Yeah.
Dumbledore could have just done it himself.
I mean, basically.
Yeah, but there's a very contrived reason for him not to. That by the end of the movie, it doesn't even matter. By the end of the movie, it doesn't even matter anymore.
Yeah, it didn't matter. And it
doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, so because of all of that, because of just the premise of the movie not even working on its own, I have to give it a skip it. There's just really no reason I can recommend it to see this over this. If you want to see a Fantastic Beasts, go back and watch the first one again. And enjoy it. If you want
to go back to the Wizarding World, all 8 Harry Potter movies are on HBO Max. They are right there.
Yeah.
And you can go back to a time when you actually liked J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, honestly, the best part of the whole movie was seeing the creatures for a little bit, Dan Fogler's character for a bit, and then seeing that creature early on. And then when you realize, like, oh, well, what's this is? I just thought on the top of my head something way more interesting. Like, oh, these are super rare creatures that can, like, we're having a political moment here, and we don't know how this is going to go. Well, we really want to get our hands on this creature. Newt, Dumbledore, please find this creature. we can't have a civil unrest in the Wizarding World. This is a very big moment, and we want to have this, and we want to make sure that it's a legitimate pick. This was an old tradition that we're not used to. This is a custom, but it's one that's respected from the older wizards. They would respect his decision like this. Can I count on you? And he's like, you can count on me, Dumbledore. And then that's the movie. The premise should just be finding this creature before the election, and the stakes of having that in the Wizarding World being in an upset. Because one of the characters is maybe dishonest. That's it. Like everything else is just like way more or less interesting. Because at the end of the day, the whole Quinlan thing does the stupidest thing ever. Spoilers wise, do you mind if we spoil?
There's no real point to spoil. It's not interesting enough to spoil, really.
Yeah, he bows. He bows to Dumbledore.
There's no stakes. There's no stakes in this, so it doesn't even matter. And we already know where Dumbledore ends up. Yeah. He ends up ditching these fly-ass suits for fucking dressing like Liberace when he gets into his 100 years old.
You know what? That's actually something I want to point out too. Why is he wearing suits? Why is he not just wearing wizarding robes?
I don't know. Because it's still the 20s, isn't it? Isn't it still the 20s?
Yeah, 20s, 30s, that's fine. But the Wizarding World never cared about that.
But then when the fuck does he go from, looking like a very clean-cut Don Draper to dressing like he's in a fucking Bruno Mars video?
Maybe he just stopped caring. There's a point that he just stopped caring, I guess. Yeah. Maybe he was looking good for Grindelwald, but then after he locked him up, he was like, there's just no point.
I ain't getting no more ass. Care.
Yeah. He's in Azkaban. I don't care anymore. But they said that they're going to wait. Warner Brothers said they're going to wait to see how well this movie is doing financially before they move on to doing the other two movies, because it's supposed to be 2 more movies. So they said they're going to wait to see how the box office does. I don't know how much this movie's going to make. It has a $200 million budget, if I'm not mistaken. So it'd have to make at least $500 million, 500, 400 million, somewhere around there. I don't know if it's going to make that much.
I think honestly, a lot of the controversy with Jake, I think that's going to hurt this movie like it should.
It made $6 million, and it's Thursday night made $6 million. So, yeah. So I don't know if it's. I mean, it'd have to make at least, like I said, 500 million, 600.
Come on, world! You lost me with giving Morbius the #1 at the box office 2 weeks ago. Don't make me lose any more faith in you.
I mean, Sonic 2 is, I think, still probably going to dominate. I think it's still probably going to do.
Fuck yeah. It's like, hey, don't give your money to this very problematic person. It's Sonic. Everybody likes Sonic.
So stream it for me and 2 skip-its. Nick and us with 2 skip-its.